Top of the hour. I appreciate everyone jumping on for our monthly webinar this month. We're super excited for this month's topic, more around talking with kids around their finances. And as Chad's eloquent title there says, bringing order to an unpredictable world. Chad will be our presenter today. While we're waiting for some more people to trickle in, just want to start off with a quick introduction of Chad, our presenter today. Chad has, 15, 20 years of experience in the investment services space, particularly around investments, providing financial advice to individuals. And that's what we do here at GBS Retire. It's what we're proud of. That's what we enjoy doing. We love doing, providing that opportunity to talk to you around finances, around your financial situation and financial planning. Chad himself has 3 kids, aged 9, 6, and 3. So he's a great resource on the topic today around teaching kids around finances. And so with that, I will turn it over to Chad.
Thanks, Rocky. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk about raising financially aware kids or raising kids in general around talking about money. It's something that a lot of us don't like to talk about. For some reason, we have no problem talking about our health issues with other people. But when it comes to money, it's one of those taboo things that no one really wants to talk about. And I think it's important that we all start at a younger age learning about finances. Majority of people I talk to, they always say, I wish I would have learned this in school, or I wish I would have learned this from my parents. So there's a few topics that we're going to be covering today. 5 lessons every kid should learn, personal values, and then the last one is savings and investing. So I know everyone on here might have kids of different ages. So, I tried to make a good presentation that covers young kids all the way up to teenagers. So, if you have a younger kid, this whole presentation will apply to you. If you have older kids, there's going to be a lot of good information from here that you'll be able to take. So first, I want to talk about why this matters. A majority of high school students out there are worried about student loans and how they're going to pay for college. 64% of teens rely on parents for money management info. Like I said, most families don't discuss money openly. It's even with kids, it's one of those things you don't want your kids to think you don't have any money. You don't want your kids to think you have too much money, because we all are worried about how they'll turn out earlier in life with that information. So I find that it's better to have that conversation with them early in life so they get a better understanding of it. So it's contrary to what we all believe. I would like to add that Rocky's going to be monitoring our chat. So if you do have any questions, please put them in there, and Rocky will be sure to monitor those, get them answered for us. All right, first thing we'll be going over is the 5 lessons. So every kid should learn what money is. Every kid should learn what things cost, what something is worth, and then the opportunity cost of that particular item or experience. And then lastly, what are the tools available to you to progress and make those good choices, not just understanding what money is, but what are the tools you can use to make yourself financially set as you get older. So the first thing I want to talk about is, what is money? Money actually has no value. And I know it's a weird thing to say, but money has a value because we assign a value to it. So it was really born out of convenience. If Rocky had apples and I wanted his apples, but all I had was firewood, I would have to go to Rocky and say, will you give me some apples for some firewood? And we'd either have to come up with a number of how many each we'd give each other, or if Rocky said, I don't want your firewood, I would have to go and find something else in the marketplace of someone that did, so I could come back to Rocky and get my apples. So throughout time, we realized that that is not an efficient way to barter with people, that it's easier to have an item that has a set value that we've assigned to it. So it's important that I would say start there with your kids. Do the bartering system with them, whether that's pretending or taking 2 items or that have multiple items and asking your son or daughter, how many X amount of toys would you give me for this toy? Or whatever it may be. But explaining the bartering system is the first foundation of explaining to kids what money is and how money works, because that is the universal choice that we've chosen to barter with. Right. This question is difficult for kids to understand. What do things cost? And I will use my kids as an example. We just came back from a vacation, and a month later, their next question was, when are we going to Disneyland? It's hard for them to comprehend that, that's not something that is easily done, because things cost money and we've already taken a vacation. So, you can't just keep going on these things. I've done my best at trying to illustrate them what things cost. And what I've found is that even me personally, when I was creating this presentation, that I've done a few things that I could have done better. First, when I explain how much things cost in bigger numbers, it's really hard for them to wrap their head around it. So it's easier to start them off small. So take them with you to the grocery store, have them look at the items and the prices of each individual items, compare different types of products that are on the shelf and the different prices between them, and then make them pay for those items. So whether it's your money or their money, if they're using allowance, hand them cash and make them pay with cash, so they can feel the emotion of it, of them taking money and handing it over for groceries at the grocery store, or in a restaurant when they get the tab or the bill for when you go to pay. It gives them the opportunity to see what things cost, and it encourages them to become a part of the process. So what is value? Taking your kids to a garage sale is something I recommend, or maybe a flea market. It can teach them to find value in something that someone else no longer wants. It shows them how they could shop for deals, that previously unwanted items can still be useful to somebody else. If they find something they want to purchase, make sure that you compare that price to a newer version of the item, so that they can see how much money they saved, or they should see the value between a used item or a new item. So that is a way to illustrate value that I have found works. Otherwise, seeing how much something costs doesn't necessarily translate to value for younger kids. So being able to compare and contrast things, whether that is even at the grocery store looking at a store branded item versus a name branded item, there's multiple ways that you can do it, but you got to get them to understand the concept of cost and the value between an item, even though they're nearly identical, whether it's used to new or store brand or name brand, and then explaining the differences to them between the two of those. I want to talk a little bit about opportunity cost. All of us on this call today make decisions every day that come down to opportunity cost. So what is an opportunity cost? It's the alternative option we give up every time we make a decision. So for example, if your kids go to the movies with their friends, they can't go to a birthday party happening at the same time. If the part of the cost of going to the movies is not going to the birthday party. So older kids may experience this lesson on their own using money. So if they give up a night of babysitting, and that babysitting job would have paid them $25, and instead they went out and spent $50 to go to a concert with their friends, that concert, the true cost of it wasn't $50. The true cost was $75, because they lost the opportunity to earn that additional $25. Use either or language. If kids realize they can either spend their hard-earned allowance money on something cheap now, or wait until next week to purchase that cool, let's say, more expensive toy, then at that point they will learn that we all have choices we have to make, and that saying yes to one thing often means saying no to another. There isn't this isn't limited to money. Consider getting ready for school, choosing to wear jeans instead of shorts, choosing to eat cereal instead of fruit. Or if your kids are like mine, they look at the school menu and there's things on there that they want to eat, or they want to pack a lunch to take to school with them. So you got to look around for occasions in life that you can point out the opportunity cost of the decision that's being made, whether you're making it or they're making it. It's best to kind of illustrate to them why that decision was made and what you may have given up for that. The final step to helping kids understand money is, what are the tools out there to set them up for success in life? And it depends on the age of your kids, obviously. You know, my kids are young, 3, 6, and 9. If I opened up an investment account for my 6-year-old, they're not going to comprehend that. They're going to not know what that means. He's going to ask the question again of, can we go to Disneyland? He's not looking at the opportunity cost of an investment account or an additional trip to Disneyland. However, he does understand a piggy bank, and he knows what paper and coin money is, and that you can use those to buy things. So I would start out with a piggy bank. Older kids, you're going to want to move on to checking and savings, what a retirement account is, how they need to save for retirement, the different types of retirement accounts, if you want to get into that, if they're interested, and explore the world of investing. So that is paramount importance to do at an age, I would say, as soon as they can understand it is when you want to start. If they start getting into their teenage years and they don't quite comprehend investing, I would start to kind of provide education on what an investment is, the companies that they buy things from, that they can own a piece of those, in order to get them to ask the questions on how to open up an investment account, what you mean about buying specific shares of stock in companies that they go shop at. So those type of things, this is how I'd start younger kids, and then kind of work them up to digital money and savings and investing. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about personal values. So this is, I would say, almost is probably the number one thing that can influence kids growing up when it comes to finances. All of us, in one way, shape, or form, grew up in a different financial circumstance. Whether that is you grew up in a household that didn't have everything they needed, and money was tight, and the value of money was a lot higher at that stage in your life or with your parents. And as you get older, those values tend to stick with you. We've all heard the stories or seen adults, colleagues, friends that were in that situation, and they tend to hold on to their money at a much higher rate than others. They're afraid to spend it. They knew what it was like to not have the money growing up. Their parents had probably talked to them about saving money and the importance of it because of the situation that they were in. So I would encourage everyone on the call, talk to your kids about how you grew up. What was your living situation? What did your mom and dad do for a living? What financial lessons did you learn from your parents? What was your first car? Did you help pay for it? What was your first job? What did you earn? Things along those lines will help illustrate to them how you grew up financially and where you're at today. So that is of the utmost importance. I would also like to put an asterisk that, obviously, given what I just said, your kids are looking at you and learning from the decisions that you make today. So just like your parents had an impact on you, you're having an impact on your kids every day that you see them, every day that they're around, and how you spend and earn money. That is number one in terms of the impact that it makes on them. So today, this is more for you. What would you wish you've known earlier? What type of monetary benefits would you like to give to your kids? So those might be on a personal level, maybe you want to tell them, maybe you don't. Maybe that is setting up a savings account for them uh, for a house purchase or college. And then, of course, think about what you wish you would have known at an earlier age and keep that in mind as what you would like to share with your kids. I hear this a lot. I wish I would have known compound interest. I wish I would have known that saving money was important. I have to remind people that I'm glad that you wish you would have known that. Let's teach other people to know that at an earlier age. So look back at the things you wish you would have known to make life easier, at least financially. Telling stories. This goes in line with that last slide. Telling stories is the most impactful way, in my opinion, that you can educate kids on the different scenarios which life can turn out. So, as my example, as you would imagine, given that the industry I work in, I had an understanding of compound interest at a young age and was fascinated with it, and my whole life has been geared around that. That is not typical. So, from a financial perspective, I get it. And I don't have siblings that treat money the same way. I don't have friends that treat money the same way. So if you can share stories about people in different stages of life, that's important, that are, let's say, in their 30s and where they're at financially compared to where you're at, whether that is in a better or worse off position because you didn't learn those things earlier on. I like to share stories of people that are older that don't have any money saved and the stress that it brings on them and the worry that it brings on them to kind of illustrate why time is important when it comes to finances. That's with older kids. Younger kids, you want to keep it simple, simple stories that they're going to be able to understand. Older kids, you really want to start with the more serious stories of what I just mentioned, how your finances have changed over time. If you would have done things at X age, how your life would have turned out now, things you may have regret. Maybe you made bad decisions financially at a younger age and it was a lot of fun at the time, but now you really regret it. And vice versa. Maybe you didn't have any fun at a younger age, and you have a lot of money to show for it, but you wish you would have spent some money at those younger ages. It's not always about maximizing every single possible dollar that you can get. Learn to earn. We all, at the beginning of the day, we have to earn money, right? Before we can make these decisions, we have to earn money. So how do we do that? You can have a job. You can utilize working around the home. You can chores. I mean, whatever it may be, mowing lawns with the neighbors. However, a young kid can earn money or an older kid can earn money, part-time job. It's important to say, look, before we can do any of this, you have to have money. So explain what income is, explain that you have a job that pays you money, and that's what you use to buy things with, that it just doesn't come in the door over unless, well, it would be fortunate if it just came in the door. But for most of us, we all have to work for it. So another way that I would illustrate this is when you're out and about, when you're shopping, when you're going to movies, when you're going to the doctor's office, explaining what jobs are out there, what those individuals had to do to get to those positions, what they do during the day and how they earn money, whether that is as a doctor and how much time they spent in school and what they do on a day-to-day basis, or whether that's a store clerk that works in a grocery store that keeps the grocery store running, keeps the shelves stocked. Those are the types of things that also helps kids not only learn income, but the different ways out there that they can earn income. Chores and allowance. A Dutch study was done, and found that individuals who received an allowance and were also taught money management, that is important, saved 16 to 30% more when they were older. So allowances, if given out and there was no education, like we're talking about today, it had no impact on their savings and earnings behaviors going forward. So allowance should come with education. Otherwise, you're giving your kids money, which is fine, but it's not going to make nearly as big of an impact on them. Research from the US indicates that young adults who receive allowances during childhood reported slightly higher levels of financial responsibility. So allowances can be a useful component of financial development when you're a child. So I would encourage all of you, if you're not already implementing something along those lines, to consider it, whether that's them doing chores, whether you just want to give a monthly allowance, and then educate them on spending, saving, and investing. Definitely consider it, because the studies have shown it does make an impact on them as they go through life. For what it's worth, I read that the average weekly allowance in the United States right now is like $40 a week. That's got to be super inflation adjusted. Either that or my parents just didn't want to give me much, because I think I remember getting like $5 a week. So either I'm really old or inflation's gone up a lot, or my parents didn't give me near as much. But $40 a week seems like a lot of money to me personally. But hey, if they're doing a lot of chores, it works. So we all have the instinct. Savings and investing. This is a topic that is more for, like I said, the older kids, but you also want to illustrate this with younger kids as well. We all have the instinct to spend money and worry about it tomorrow. Part of that is biological. We were, like, as a species, when food was in front of us, we never knew when food was going to be there again, so we ate the food. We did not save it. We needed the food. We ate the food because we were worried about what the future was going to be. Saving or spending money is no different. We have money and we spend it because we don't know when we're going to have it again. And we want that particular item because it's of more value to us at the time. So it's a biological thing that's inside of us. It's also causes immediate feelings of gratification. So that reinforces that behavior. Saving money is difficult because it doesn't reinforce those gratification endorphins or feelings. So there's ways that we got to make overcome those. And initially, it's saving at the beginning is what makes it most difficult, because you look at your balance. I think this is probably for all of us. We look at our balance and we think of what we could have bought or what we should have bought, whatever it may be. But as we get older and we save, we start to see that balance grow, and then it starts to release those gratification, those endorphins of the decisions that you made, and how much more and better off and stress-free your life is because of that. So it's really hard to get going. It does have kind of a snowball effect to it. So saving is definitely a challenge to overcome for us. All right, ways to get them to save. I took some fun on the titles here, played around with it a little bit. Make saving fun again. So younger kids, this one's pretty easy in my opinion. Choose clear containers or piggy banks. That is important because they get to see how much is in there. They get to visually see how much money they're saving. So it reinforces that saving gratification. Let them decorate those containers, whatever you need to do to have them keep those on their nightstand or keep them on a shelf somewhere that they look at, whatever it may be that they want to do. And then at the same time, have them make a wish list of things that they might want to purchase and list the amount of money that they need for those particular items. Show them the money, baby. Count those coins, count the money with them periodically, see how much they have. Not only will this help them with math, it helps them understand individual coins and their values and dollars. I actually had someone tell me They went through the drive-through at McDonald's and handed the individual cash, and that individual didn't know how to make change, so they just handed the cash back and said, "Don't worry about it." That's very concerning. I'm sure some of you on this call are laughing. That individual happens to be a friend of mine, and she went back in and said, "No, I'll show you how to make change. You need to know how to do this," and walked them through. Left the drive-through, went in, and showed that individual how to make change with money. So do that now so they understand it. Pour some sugar, offer an incentive, obviously depending on their age, whether that's stickers, prizes, awards. When they're older, it's going to be more significant items. I would encourage you to pay interest on their savings. This is a good thing to start at a young age. It gets them to understand what interest is. It gets them to realize the more they save, the more interest they get. Obviously, you want to cut that off at some point, or else it's going to get real expensive. Or you can match their savings like you would with a retirement account. So real world rainmaking, this is what I call living in the real world, and the different savings and investing strategies we all need to know. Investing is the number one, retirement plans and personal savings. Ways to invest, I would start real simple here, talking about Costco, Netflix, Apple products they use all the time, and then explain to them lower risk, higher risk, and how those work. So volatility and the types of returns you can get by taking on those additional risks. Get excited for them, show them this illustration here. I took $2,000 annual contribution from age 10 to 18. And then you'll see here, I calculated the initial deposit based on that after the returns as well. And then I compounded that for 50 years with no additional contribution and used the average historical return for the S&P 500. So just from the ages of 10 to 18, they put away 16,000 essentially, whether you're doing it for them and they're earning money and watching you put it in, or they're doing it. Show them this, because they can stop contributing at the age of 18 and end with $3.2 million. So this is the kind of stories I want you to tell as well, and it gets them excited. You want to get excited about it as well to show them the importance of it. The last one here, and then we'll take some questions, is budget basics. Where does your money go? Prioritizing spending, short and long-term expenses. And then there's a lot of resources out there. Envelope method, budgeting apps if they're older and have a phone. And then, having someone to hold you accountable. Are you accident prone? I don't think anyone's accident prone. I just think accidents happen. So you need to illustrate with them on why they need to have an emergency fund, whether that is a car that broke down, you dropped your phone and it broke, you lost your job, whatever it may be, and why they need to save for those. And then what are they going to do between adulthood and retirement? Are you going to buy a house, cars, a beach house? Are you going to give a lot of money to your parents? I hope it's the latter. And how are they going to spend or save money for those particular goals in life? And then lifestyles of the rich and the famous. There's a good Charlotte song out there that is called Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous. If you're not rich or famous, don't try to be rich or famous, because the example that you're setting for your kids and everyone around you is the one that they're going to follow. They'll think it's okay, and they're going to turn out in that particular situation. Maybe you don't care, but it is important to live within your means, and don't get too crazy or let things go to your head. So they want to live just like their role model. Be the example that you would want when you were their age, instead of trying to live rich and famous, unless you are, in which case live it up. Okay. I'm here to take questions. Happy to take questions if anybody has them. You can also scan that QR code there and get time to meet with myself or Rocky. We can get more into this if you want us to have conversations with you and your kids at the same time, to have some discussion around it. Generally, obviously, that would work better if they're older. I don't think Rocky and I can get through to 6-year-olds as well as you can. But I would encourage you to reach out and talk to us, schedule time with us. We can help you with anything financial, all things financial, investing, financial planning, debt pay down strategies, whatever it may be. So utilize us. We're not going to charge you for that meeting. So I would encourage you to do it. Rocky, hit me with the questions, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chad. Great content today. Just as a follow-up after this meeting and with the follow-up email we send tomorrow as well, we'll send out the recording and the survey as well. Feel free to take time to go through that. We do take those very seriously, and feel free to include any recommended topics if you want us to cover those in the future. With that, I'll also be sending out a PDF. American Century puts out a great PDF on raising financially aware kids. So I'll include that as well, which covers some additional topics we didn't have time to go into today. But we did see some questions come through. First one here, at what age do you recommend starting to give an allowance?
So that obviously is a personal one, but what I would advise people to do is as soon as your kids start to put together that they can do something and earn something for it. So whether that is mom or dad says vacuum the family room and they give me $1, and then what that dollar can do, what can I spend that dollar on? I know it's crazy to start with spending, but that's kind of how they start to understand the bartering system, the spending, how it works, and why they didn't want to earn money. As soon as they're capable of understanding that is when I would start. Start small. Obviously, you don't need to start giving a 3-year-old $50 a week, but as soon as you can start illustrating that.
Absolutely. Another question here, is there any data on kids who simply received an allowance versus those who had to actually work for your money, or thoughts on that?
Great question. There is. It doesn't make an impact either way. They receive the money, they learn how to spend money, they learn the bartering system, they know they have to work for money when they're older, provided you've taught them that. And the difference is they don't understand the savings portion of it. So kids that have the allowance and worked for it tend to save more when they're older, and kids that have an allowance and are educated on finances in addition to that tend to save even more money.
Wonderful. Another question here, what type of investment accounts can I open for my child, and is a 529 a good option?
Great question. There's several of them. 529 is one you mentioned. That's a college savings account. It does have some tax benefits attached to it. There's also uniform transfer to minor accounts is the name of them. But if you go to Fidelity or Charles Schwab, you'll see open up an account for my child. That's just the industry's term for it. You would be the owner of it as custodian of the account until they turned a certain age. And then the money would be handed over to them. We can help you with that too if you want to navigate those complexities. Should you do one or the other? I'll tell you what I've done. Doesn't mean it's right. College savings plans are very restrictive. They are used for college or education expenses. You can change the beneficiary on them, which is nice, provides you flexibility. It keeps the money away from them if they were to turn 18 and spend it all on something that maybe you don't think would be wise. I do not have college savings plans. I use one of those investment accounts for a multitude of reasons. Number one, there's less demand now for higher education than there ever has been, believe it or not. Colleges are closing their doors left and right. They're going bankrupt. I don't know what college is going to cost in the future. And quite frankly, at that time in my kid's life, I'm probably going to be able to pay for it with cash flow anyways. So I opened up an investment account for the purpose of teaching them how that money can grow. And then also it provides them more flexibility when they're older. So provided I've done my job correctly and they understand compound interest and saving and money, it is my hope at least that if I've done a good job that they're going to use that money responsibly. So for a home, for school, if they wanted to do that, whatever it may be. But that is my personal choice. That is what I have chosen to do. There's not a right or wrong way to do it in between there. I just prefer the flexibility.
Yeah, we also got a comment as you were talking there about the 529s. They now offer the ability to transfer some of that to a Roth IRA as well, to transfer that into a retirement account. So another additional benefit of those if you do like that strategy. Awesome. Another question here, Chad, do you have any experience or thoughts on green light cards that allow checking savings and investing opportunities that can be monitored by parents?
Great question. There's a lot of them out there, and they're relatively newer, but quite frankly, that's probably with older kids that we need to go, because that's the reality of the world, right? We don't get paychecks in cash anymore. It gets direct deposited. So that really helps education wise as well, because maybe at a younger age they can see cash and parting with it, how it hurts. But nowadays that we don't use cash. That's just, we get it electronically and we spend it, and it's easier to spend that way. So I am a big fan of those. I think they are great options in terms of teaching, especially because you also get access to view what they're spending their money on, and it gives you a chance to offer additional education to them as well. It's not just green light. There's several of them. I know Chase Bank offers teenage accounts for free. Does something very similar. You can actually put chores in there, and when they check them off, it allows you to automatically transfer the money over to their account. So it kind of ties in everything I'm talking about. I'm sure other banks have it too, but it's really, really cool and unique service that I am so glad they came out with, because it is going to help people a great deal.
Awesome. Last question I see here. So you mentioned allowing kids to participate in purchasing items at grocery store or restaurants. How transparent should we be with our kids about our finances? For example, should we include how much debt we have and how fast we're paying it down, how much we pay for various options, and how much cars and homes cost? Bit of info.
Yeah, thank you for asking. That goes back to what I said. It's one of those things that I don't want to say ashamed of, but money is personal, and it can be embarrassing if if you know you didn't make the right decisions. It's something we don't want to talk about. The more information you share with your kids, the better. It just depends on their age. So purchasing stuff at a grocery store is a real easy way for them to understand that food just doesn't magically appear, that if mom or dad bought ice cream, it's because they parted with X amount of money so we could have that, versus cereal or milk. Uh, that is an easier way for them to understand. Now, at some point, to your credit, what I would say is, yes, you want to share that information with them, particularly if it's causing you stress or you wish you would have done it different. If you trust your kids not to share it with the world, or if you don't care if they share it with the world, then I would start having those conversations of, look, don't do this, because then you'll end up in the situation we're in right now, and we can't do certain things because we have this we have to pay for. That is how kids learn. That's being a role model right there, and learning to admit to mistakes. It's painful, especially if you're doing it to your kids, but you don't have to frame it as a mistake. And that will carry with them throughout life. And rather than saying, I wish my parents would have taught me more, it will be, my parents taught me that this isn't a good idea, or this is a good idea. So I would encourage you to do it. Obviously, you can keep it somewhat private. You don't want to be going around saying, we have car loans that exceed our income by $1,000 a month, because then you probably need to talk to Rocky and I. We get that adjusted before you have those conversations. But yes, I would encourage you to have those conversations. I plan on having those conversations with my kids. It just helps them out in life.
Awesome. That's all the questions that I see in the Q&A. So if you have more personal questions that you didn't want to answer for the group, feel free to scan that or reach out to us directly. Like Chad said, we're always happy to be a resource for you. We love what we do. We love providing general education and helping people on their financial journey. So don't ever hesitate to reach out. Keep an eye out for the registration for next month's webinar. We're planning on having that more focused on saving for retirement, specifically saving early in your career, Roth versus pre-tax, all that good stuff that is involved with that. So keep an eye out for that. But thanks all for spending some time with us today.
Thank you.